I still remember the sound of the cables scraping against the conference table. Sharp, abrupt, final. 1 second, my slides were glowing across the 12-foot screen. The next, everything went black. The CEO, Victor Hale, didn't wait for anyone to react. He yanked my laptop cord completely free and slammed it onto the polished wood surface. "Enough," he snapped. "I can't listen to this crap any longer. You're embarrassing our company." For a moment no one breathed. My cheeks burned hot, but I didn't say anything. I didn't defend myself. I didn't look at him. People often expect collapse in moments like this. Trembling hands, stuttering apologies, begging. Instead, I reached for my laptop gently, almost peacefully, and closed the lid. Slow, deliberate, because just 2 minutes earlier, as I spoke about the new cybersecurity framework I designed, the one Victor claimed was unnecessary and overcomplicated, my phone buzzed inside my blazer pocket, and I had seen the preview message from the client sitting right across the table. "Leave the room. He's about to learn a lesson." At the time, I wasn't sure what it meant. Now, I suspected I was about to find out. As I packed my things, the room shifted. A few co-workers smirked. The kind of smirk people wear when someone else becomes the sacrifice that keeps the wolves fed. Others whispered, not even trying to hide it. She really thought she had a chance. Why would she present something he already rejected? She shouldn't have provoked him. Provoked him. All I did was perform the task assigned to me. The same task he approved a week ago. But the truth everyone knew and no one dared to say was that Victor never actually listened to ideas unless he believed he came up with them. Still, the humiliation stung. Not because I cared about his opinion, but because my work, months of late nights, research papers, and consultations with global experts, was dismissed like a toddler's drawing tape to the fridge. I forced myself to breathe slowly. Don't react emotionally. Don't give him a scene. Don't let them see the wound. As I zipped my laptop bag, Victor leaned closer. His voice low enough so only I could hear, but sharp enough to slice. "You're not leadership material, Claire. You'll never be." I finally looked at him. His confidence wasn't strength. It was arrogance wearing a suit. And arrogance blinds people right before impact. I pushed my chair back. The legs scraped against the floor. Sound far louder than physics should allow. It felt like a line being drawn between who I had been 5 minutes ago and who I was now. Before I turned to leave, I scanned the room briefly, studying faces the way you memorize a battlefield before it explodes. Some avoided eye contact. Some looked relieved it wasn't them. But one pair of eyes belonging to the client representative Evan Russell, VP of a global tech defense group, met mine with steady calm. Not pity, not sympathy, purpose. He gave the smallest nod. So small most people would miss it. I didn't. The hallway felt colder than the boardroom. My footsteps echoed as if the building itself was listening. Halfway down the corridor, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Evan. "Wait outside. Don't leave." My heart kicked hard in my chest. I stepped into the reception lounge. Modern glass walls, quiet hum of air conditioning, and sat down. Behind the boardroom doors, I could hear raised voices. Sharp, tense, then louder, then unmistakable. Victor's voice no longer controlled. "What do you mean?" "She already sent the report to legal." My breath caught. They didn't know. No one knew. 2 weeks earlier, Evan had asked me privately to send everything I had, documentation, testing logs, predicted breach models directly to their federal compliance team. Not because they doubted the system, but because Victor had repeatedly delayed approvals. Almost like he wanted the cybersecurity weaknesses to remain. And now the client knew all of it. Every ignored warning, every oversight, every risk. The boardroom door exploded open. Executives spilled out, pale and frantic. Victor followed, red-faced, chest heaving. He saw me, and for the first time since I joined the company 3 years earlier, he wasn't smirking. He wasn't dismissive. He looked afraid. My phone buzzed one more time. Final message. "They're replacing someone today, and it won't be you." I stood up as Victor approached, voice cracking. "Claire, hold on. We need to talk." For the first time since the presentation began, I smiled. Not out of revenge, not out of pride, but because sometimes life teaches in painful, unforgettable ways. Respect isn't owed, it's earned. And arrogance has an expiration date. For a moment, Victor and I just stood there, the hallway between us feeling like a courtroom waiting for a verdict. His voice trembled first. "Claire, listen." My reaction earlier, it was rushed, unprofessional. His eyes darted toward the boardroom doors where executives watched silently. "Let's go somewhere private. We can talk. Fix this." A month ago I would have followed him. I would have defended my work, apologized for inconveniencing him, tried to make him see value. Not today. Kept my tone calm. "There's nothing to fix." The sentence hit harder than a scream. His jaw twitched. Before he could respond, Evan stepped out of the boardroom. His posture carried something Victor's never did. Certainty. "Claire," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Could you step back inside? We're requesting your input." My stomach tightened. Not fear, validation. I walked past Victor without breaking eye contact. For the first time he didn't stop me. Inside, the boardroom atmosphere had shifted. Gone was the smug amusement, replaced with tension so thick it felt physical. The CFO cleared his throat. "Claire, earlier today you mentioned projected breach scenarios. We'd like you to present that portion verbally." Verbally. Without slides, without notes, without preparation. Few months ago that would have terrified me. But humiliation teaches clarity. I placed my laptop bag on the table, lifted my chin and spoke. I explained how the company's aging security system was vulnerable, how ransomware families had grown sophisticated, how just one overlooked entry point could cost the client millions, or worse, compromise national infrastructure. No dramatics, no panic, just facts. By the time I finished, no one whispered, no one smirked. Silence held the room. Evan finally spoke. "Everything she said aligns with the findings from our independent audit. We requested her full proposal because we were already concerned about your existing infrastructure." He turned to the CEO. "And now that I've seen her work, but also your attitude toward it, I'm making this clear. We will not move forward unless Claire leads this project." Victor blinked, stunned. "You can't demand personnel involvement. That's overstepping." Evan didn't flinch. "It's not a demand. It's a condition. You humiliated your own expert in front of your partners. If she leaves, we follow." The CFO exhaled sharply. The CEO stared at the table. Victor paled. And I finally breathed. The HR director stood abruptly as if remembering something. "There's another matter. Claire submitted a formal internal report last month regarding ignored risk documentation and project delays." She looked directly at Victor. "You never filed a response." Victor stiffened. "Because the report was unnecessary. This entire department has enough." The CFO snapped. "We've had complaints before. This time there's evidence." Victor's eyes bounced between the executives searching for support. None came. Then HR delivered the final blow. "Effective immediately, you're suspended pending investigation." Every muscle in his face collapsed at once. Humiliation had come full circle. Quiet, controlled, and irreversible. He tried to speak, a defense, an excuse, maybe even an apology. But the board didn't give him the chance. Security arrived. And just like that, the man who unplugged my laptop in front of a room full of people walked out without saying another word. When the door closed behind him, I expected to feel triumph. But instead, what washed over me was something softer. Relief. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't fighting to be heard. I wasn't shrinking to survive. Someone finally listened. Someone finally saw. Evan turned to me. "There's one final question," he said. "Are you willing to lead the implementation?" His words held weight. Not flattery, not pity, opportunity. I thought of the long nights, the doubt, the exhaustion. I thought of every moment I nearly gave up because someone louder convinced a room I wasn't enough. Then I nodded. "Yes, I am." The CFO smiled. "Good. Then tomorrow we begin. Hours later, as I stepped out of the building, the sun was setting. Soft golden quiet. My phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. Thank you for not breaking. Watching you today reminded us all. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's patience. I stopped walking. Not because of the message, but because of the truth in it. People think strength is loud, shouting, reacting, fighting. But sometimes strength is the woman who quietly packs her laptop, who doesn't flinch when underestimated, who trusts her work more than someone else's ego. Sometimes strength is knowing. You don't need to prove your worth. Some people just need time to see it. And when they finally do, everything changes. The next morning, walking into the office felt different. Not louder, not more glamorous, just steadier. People looked at me in passing, some with curiosity, some pretending not to stare, a few with respect they hadn't shown before. But I didn't let any of it sink too deep. Tension is temporary. Behavior is what lasts. At my desk, the first thing waiting was a calendar invite. Kickoff meeting 10 a.m. led by Claire Thompson. Seeing my name attached to leadership didn't feel triumphant. It felt earned. Brick by brick, report by report, night by night. Still, nerves fluttered. Confidence wasn't the absence of fear. It was learning not to let fear speak first. 10 minutes later, Jenna, a project analyst who had always been polite but distant, approached me holding a coffee. She didn't say anything at first. She just placed the cup on my desk. Finally, she whispered, "I'm sorry," and blinked. For what? For not speaking yesterday. For laughing when others did. For knowing you were right. And staying silent. She wasn't looking for forgiveness. She already knew she didn't deserve it. But life teaches you something important. Most people aren't cruel. They're afraid. Afraid of challenging the loudest voice. Afraid of standing alone. Afraid of being the next target, so I nodded gently. "Thank you for saying it." She exhaled like she'd been carrying that apology for years. The kickoff meeting filled the conference room quickly. No one talked over me. No one questioned whether I should lead. But the real shift happened 20 minutes in. I was explaining the revised deployment timeline when the door opened. Victor walked in. Not storming, not smirking, just walking. He wasn't escorted. He wasn't yelling. He looked smaller somehow, like arrogance had drained out of him overnight. Conversations died instantly. He cleared his throat. I was told I could say something before I left. Before he left, so the suspension wasn't temporary. This was goodbye. My pulse quickened, but I stayed still. Victor slowly scanned the room. His voice wasn't strong, but it wasn't sarcastic either. When you lead a company long enough, you start believing you're the smartest person in every room. You stop listening. He paused. And then someone reminds you that knowledge isn't noise. It's value. And value deserves respect. My chest tightened. He turned to me. "I'm sorry, Claire. Not for yesterday. For every time before that I shut you down without listening." Silence stretched. Not tense, thoughtful. Then he nodded once, placed his badge on the table, and left the room. The door clicked shut quietly, a chapter ending, not with chaos but accountability. After the meeting, Evan stayed behind. "You handled that well," he said. "I didn't do anything," I replied. "You didn't attack him. You didn't gloat. You let him face the consequences without trying to control the moment. That's leadership." I looked down at my notes. "Does it ever stop feeling overwhelming?" I asked softly. He smiled, not mockingly, knowingly. "No, but eventually it feels less like drowning and more like steering." His words settled into me like a new truth. Uncomfortable but right. Over the next weeks, the project moved forward. People asked questions. People sought input. People listened. And slowly the culture shifted. Not all at once. Change rarely happens in a single explosion. Sometimes it happens through quiet repetition. Truth, respect, accountability. One afternoon while reviewing updated security logs, HR emailed me, a new contract attached, a new title, Director of Cybersecurity Architecture. I stared at the screen. It wasn't victory. It was validation. A reminder that standing up for what's right doesn't always require confrontation. Sometimes it requires unwavering belief in the work. The night I signed the contract, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea, replaying everything. The humiliation, the message, the shift, the apology. And I realized something. We often think the loudest part of the story is the moment we break or the moment we rise. But the real turning point, it's quieter. It's the moment we decide, I am worth being heard, even if no one listens yet. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks out of a boardroom calmly while a storm waits behind the door. And sometimes, just sometimes, the storm changes everything. By the fourth week, everything felt both familiar and unrecognizable. Same building, same badge, same view from the 8th floor window. But the energy, completely different. Meetings ran smoother. People came prepared. Questions were thoughtful, not performative. And when disagreements happened, because they always do, they were about solutions, not egos. Still, something inside me remained unsettled. Not anxious, just aware. Success changes how people treat you, but it also reveals who they've always been. One morning, while reviewing a vendor contract, my inbox pinged. A message from someone I hadn't expected to hear from. Victor Hale. Subject, coffee. My stomach tightened. Part of me wanted to delete it. Another part understood the request wasn't casual. So I replied, I'm available at 3 p.m. The cafe across the street. At 3:02 I saw him through the window. No suit jacket, sleeves rolled up, posture less rigid. He looked like a man who'd stopped pretending to be invincible. When he sat down, he didn't force small talk. He just exhaled and said, Do you ever think about how close you were to walking away? I studied him. His tone wasn't defensive or manipulative. It was honest. Yes, I said. More times than I can count. He gave a sad chuckle. I know I made it difficult. I made a habit of pushing away people smarter than me. Not many people admit that. He continued slower this time. I built this company from nothing. And somewhere along the line, I stopped believing I needed to learn anything new. His fingers traced the rim of his coffee cup, a small unconscious gesture of regret. I thought leadership meant power, he said quietly. But watching everything fall apart, I realized it means accountability. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked, So what now? He lifted his eyes, tired but clear. I'm consulting for a small startup. They build accessible security tools. Low budget, high potential. They wanted me, but they need someone who understands the evolving landscape. Then the words he never could have said weeks earlier. Would you consider advising them? Not for me. For them. They deserve someone who listens. I wasn't expecting that. But growth isn't just changing yourself. Sometimes it's recognizing when others are trying to change too. I nodded slowly. I'll think about it. His relief was subtle but real. Before he stood, he added one last thing. Claire, thank you for not fighting me the way I fought you. If you had yelled or made a scene, I would have dug in deeper. But you let the consequences be the teacher. I didn't know what to say, so I simply replied, Everyone learns differently. He smiled, small, sincere, then left. And as I watched him walk away, I realized something surprising. I no longer felt anger, just closure. Later that week, during a final pre-deployment review, Jenna leaned close and whispered, You know what still shocks me? What? You never once gloated. Most people would have. Thought about it. The humiliation, the whispers, the moment the screen went black, the moment every eye turned to watch me fall. Then the message that changed everything. Leave the room. He's about to learn a lesson. Finally, I answered her. Winning isn't proving someone wrong. It's proving to yourself that walking away from their approval doesn't cost you your worth. She nodded, not because she understood fully but because she wanted to. Deployment day came faster than expected. The client signed off. The systems ran flawlessly. And when the final confirmation message appeared on the dashboard, the room burst into applause. Evan approached me with a handshake that turned into something warmer. Respect in physical form. You didn't just secure a system, he said. You changed a workplace. Maybe that was true. Or maybe everyone simply remembered what can happen when someone is underestimated long enough. That evening, as I packed up my things, I paused and looked around the office. Really looked. Where I once felt small, I now felt grounded. Not because of a title, not because of recognition, but because I finally understood. Strength isn't the absence of doubt. Strength is moving forward anyway. And sometimes the most powerful revenge is becoming someone who no longer needs it. 3 months after deployment, life settled into an unexpected rhythm. Not dramatic, not glamorous, just steady. The kind of steady that finally lets you breathe. Our cybersecurity system had not only passed every audit, it had been praised publicly. The client renewed their contract with a multi-year commitment. And suddenly people wanted interviews, conference talks, even podcast appearances. But recognition wasn't the victory. The victory was the quiet. The ability to walk into a room without bracing, the ability to speak without shrinking, the ability to lead without defending your right to. Still, something kept tugging at me. That offer Victor mentioned during our coffee conversation. The startup. I hadn't ignored it, but I hadn't committed either. Not because I didn't want to help. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't rushing towards something out of desperation or fear of being overlooked. I was choosing slowly, carefully, based on alignment, not survival. One Friday afternoon, as I gathered my things to leave, Evan knocked lightly on my door. Heading out, he asked. Trying to, I said with a small smile. But reports like to multiply. He laughed softly. Mind if I walk with you? We left the building together, the late autumn wind pushing fallen leaves across the walkway. Neither of us spoke for the first few steps, and strangely, it wasn't awkward. Felt respectful. Finally, he said, I heard you met with Victor. I did. And he's learning, I answered. Slowly, honestly. Evan nodded like that mattered more than anything. We reached the street corner before he spoke again. You know, he said gently, not everyone gets a moment like you had. A moment where everything someone used against you becomes the thing that elevates you. I looked down at the pavement. It didn't feel like a moment, I admitted. It felt like 1,000 small choices stacked on top of each other. Exactly, he said. People think resilience is one dramatic act, but it's not. It's the quiet refusal to stop showing up. We stopped at the crosswalk. And then he asked the question I'd been avoiding from everyone, including myself. So, what do you want now? Not what's expected. Not what pays more. Not what's safe. What do you want? No one had asked me that in years, maybe ever. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the world slow. What did I want? Not approval. Not revenge, not even recognition. I wanted impact. I wanted autonomy. I wanted places where voices weren't measured by volume, but by value. When I opened my eyes, I knew. I want to build something, I said quietly. Not just maintain what already exists. Evan smiled, not surprised, just pleased. Then call the startup. That night, I sat at my dining table with my laptop open and the contract on the screen. It wasn't as large as my current salary. It wasn't prestigious. It didn't come with a private office or a team already built, but it came with something bigger. Trust, room to innovate, space to lead, a foundation not yet shaped by ego or hierarchy. I scrolled to the bottom of the contract and hovered over the signature line. My hands didn't shake. Not this time. Sign. My resignation meeting the following Monday was calm. The CFO blinked in surprise, but after a pause, nodded with genuine respect. You'll do incredible things, she said. Just promise us one thing. What's that? Teach people what you taught us, that intelligence doesn't need permission to exist. Promise. And as I gathered my belongings for the final time, Jenna hugged me tightly. You changed this place, she whispered. No, corrected gently. The place changed because people finally listened. She wiped a tear and laughed. Same result. On my last day, as I reached the lobby, my phone buzzed. One new message. Not from Evan, not from Jenna, not from the startup, from Victor. Good luck, Claire. The world needs more leaders who don't lead with fear. Thank you for proving I was wrong. I'm still learning and I hope that never stops. I stared at the words for a long moment. Not because I needed them, but because they symbolize something important. Not every ending needs a villain. Not every fight needs a winner. Sometimes growth is the quiet apology. Sometimes redemption is the willingness to change. Sometimes closure is finally choosing yourself. As I walked out the glass doors into the crisp afternoon air, I felt something simple and powerful. Not the kind you wait for, the kind you earn.